Now it's time for Inspirational Women. Dating expert Denise Lizette is the author of Starlight Starbright, Where in the Heck is Mr. Right? This is a humorous, real-life account of lessons learned after more than 200 first dates. So good morning, Denise Lizette. It is so wonderful to have you here to give us more insights about this really interesting title for a book. More than 200 dates. Actually, what is it? Like, I think you said 236?
236 first dates. Yes, our journals in the book. And thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate it. I'm going to enjoy the time that we chat. Yes, 236 first dates. As a child, I was that little girl who had a diary, and and I used to journal everything. And when I started dating, I used to come back and I would journal. And then I thought I should put this in a book. I'd like its own journal, and I should see how long this takes for me to, find the man I'm going to marry or, whatever, the significant relationship or whatever my goals and the aspirations were for relationships around the time. And then I just kept numbering them and it just kept on going and going. And so here I am over 30 years later of dating. I was married and I got a divorce. And so that adds some flavor to the journal itself. But yeah, and the beauty of the journal and the kind of subtitle of my book is A Journey of Good Dates and Good Stories, because my impression of everything and the way I want to look at life is that dates are something that can be sometimes a little more challenging. They can make you feel very insecure, but at the end of the day, it's a good date or a good story. You went on it, you put yourself out there, and hopefully you enjoyed your time, whether it goes anywhere or it doesn't. A good date or a good story. And the good stories hopefully make you laugh.
And what I find is so amazing about this, many things that are so interesting, but to be journaling and keeping track of it, and you do realize earlier on that, this could be a great book. But just to have had that discipline of writing it down and knowing, how to proceed along, that is... Well, some discipline and organization. Yeah. That is great.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I am organized and I am disciplined. I'm the same person who washes her face every single night. So I guess there's certain things, maybe it's habitual. But no, and it's funny that you say that because I remember that there were a couple times, probably in more of my recent dating, that, I would go out and then, come back home, whatever, I'd be asleep, and then wake up in the morning, I'd be like, oh, wait, I didn't journal. I need to journal. And so, I thought, oh my gosh, this is funny. Are you slipping? I'm like, no, I'm not slipping. I only slipped like maybe 10 hours. And so, but yes, it did. But it just became a habit. It became part of the date. And again, it's just the first date. And I never really wrote much after. And it was always, as I call it, like a mind dump. I simply came home and gave my very blunt, very raw Denise kind of journal entry. Some are longer, some are shorter. And I just wrote it down in my, just in my thought, like a total mind dump kind of a thing. So even when I started writing the book and reviewing the journals, I mean, some of it totally made me laugh. One of the things I thought was the funniest thing that happened while I was reviewing all of them and kind of deciding which ones I was going to highlight through the book was that I realized that I was fixed up on a date with the same man 20 years later. It was 15. I'm sorry, it wasn't 20. It was 15 years later. It was hilarious. I was reading through the journal and was talking about this gentleman, and he worked for like a PR company, and he was a friend of mine. And I went and I was like, I'm not really sure, my notes were like kind of what he did and who he was, and I just kind of had like a real neutrality, kind of a reaction to this person. And then I was like, wait a minute. I think that's this guy I just met like 6 months ago through a different friend who fixed me up with him. So even in this day and age, it wasn't an online thing that I met him. It was another, kind of fix up from a friend, a mutual friend. And I mean, he's a super nice guy, and we both just kind of knew it. We just didn't connect, but we knew we were good people, so to say. And so I called him, and I said, you're not going to believe this. I don't think you've put the dots together, but I have. And oh, my gosh, I'm reviewing this. I'm writing this book. He so happened to be a creative writer in the PR world, so we had talked about writing, so he knew I was going to write this book. And so I said, I just went through this, and, we met like 15 years ago. And he's like, we did. And so I explained who the people were. And just started, and we laughed and we laughed and we laughed. And I said, well, I mean, the outside world thinks this. And he's like, I know, but we just think we're better as friends. And I'm like, yes, we do. But
Yeah.
I mean, So it just was a funny thing. And if not reviewing the entire thing, I would have not connected those dots myself.
That is so amazing. And
Yeah.
the value there too of seeing that, okay, 15 years ago we met and it was
Hmm.
okay, but we didn't go further. And now 15 years later, and we realize, yeah, we're friend material. So that's a
Exactly. Right.
great
Yeah, mutual
realization.
respect, and then and like even when you look at that, like that journal, that girth of time or that span of time, like it's because it was my mind dump, right? You can look at that and feel exactly how you felt at 23 when you met that guy and he was a jerk, or you met that guy and he was amazing. It doesn't matter. You go right there with those words because they were so me, and so it was nice even with him that I kind of like thought this was a neat, kind of analogy to say, okay, well, what's happened in my life in 15 years? I mean, I met the man I married, I divorced the man I married, and then here I am back dating, and then he had different things that happened in his life, and I was like, how ironic, but yet core wise, mutual respect, just not dating material for each other, for
Yeah.
not that alignment for ourselves.
Right. And so that's a wonderful realization to have that, okay, nice people, but that spark isn't there. So we're not going to,
Absolutely.
essentially waste each other's time in terms
Hmm.
of dating at least.
Hmm. Yes, it is. And I think, everyone needs to, I have some coaching clients that I'm working with and writing the book and so forth. And that's one of the things that I stress a lot to share with people that, when you're talking with someone, your answers and their answers to any questions that are corresponding back and forth, they're always the right answers. They just need to be the right answer for you. They don't have to be the right answer for the other person. So I might be saying that a little bit backwards. So if I give an answer, my answer is correct because it's from me. It's my authentic self saying exactly who and what I am or what the situation is, whatever the question is. And the other person's answer is just as equally right for them. It may not align, but it's just as equally right. And so we have to kind of look at that when we're dating and meeting people, that we can be different. We can be different and fall in love, and we can have a wonderful relationship as long as we respect those differences. And we can be different and just kind of agree that, you know what, we don't align. But you're a good person, and I'm a good person, and I'm never going to have ill will for you. And have that correspondence and be that honest and open about it too, and reciprocate it. Receptive of it. Because the other hard part is sometimes when someone says that, they get angry. Someone will get upset because they felt there was no chemistry, or they felt there was something else. And if it's not if it's not both of you, then it's not gonna spark.
Right.
So you have to respect that other person is being open and honest and sharing this in a really a thoughtful way, not a hurtful way. So it is how we ingest things sometimes too. That's so very important. As we walk through these different times that we put ourselves out there and try to be who we are, but then we always are trying to gain acceptance while we're in a date too. And mostly, we need to show up as our authentic selves and be okay with what we're hearing, and know that it's not at us, it's for us.
Mm-hmm. That is a real critical part of it. And I can see that at different ages of our life, and this is spanning 30 years. So you have a
Mm-hmm.
really good perspective, I feel, Denise, of
Yeah.
looking at this. Because in our late teens or teens into our
Mm-hmm.
20s, there's maybe just this kind of like, oh, just fun. I just want to go out and have fun.
Right.
It's not about, really thinking about the future. Now, it can be for some people much more
Mm-hmm.
serious minded. I'm not going to waste any time with anyone. They want to be very organized. And you're a very organized person, but I don't know that you would have approached dating that way, that, okay, I need to really be focused and I'm just going to be serious about dating.
Right. No, and you're right. The journal can span, and when I do look at it, I see my 20-year-old self. Right. There's so much that girl needs to learn, but then and she did learn, but just not for 20 more years. And so and then I see my 30-year-old self, And I think the beauty of it is, and anybody could really do this if they took the time to look at it, is as I'll call it like in third person, she's precious in all these ages. She's just evolving. And so it is a very interesting time because, right, in your 20s, you're, okay, yeah, let's just have fun and let's meet people. Or, like I think my first relationships, I definitely wanted a relationship. I wanted something serious. And of course, every relationship you want to go to the marriage if it can, and blah, blah, blah. If I had all the Cinderella dreams. And that's totally fine. And they were good, and then they fell from grace, and that's okay. And then we got back up, and we got back on it. But you're right, there's times in our lives that I say, like, my terms are, your head's not in the game, right? So if your head's not in the game, you shouldn't be there. And then other times, the game is one thing. The game is fun, light, let's just have someone I can go to dinner or take to weddings and have a good time with, kind of a thing. And then other times it's like, no, I really want a commitment. I want to maybe start a family. I want to be I'm more marriage minded than I was 5 years ago. And so now here I am. And I did have a gentleman, I remember when I was in my late 30s, and the man I married, we had broken up, and I was going on this date with this gentleman. And he was probably about maybe 5-7 years older than me, which to me wasn't bad. And but he did not want to have children. And I don't have any children, but at 38, I still felt like I could have children, and I still wanted to find someone who wanted to have a family. And he sticks out of my mind all the time because he was really a great guy. He seemed like a wonderful family man. He did show up to my date very honest, very authentic, very open, and he was a great guy. But because he didn't want a family, and he was authentic enough to say it to me, which I very much appreciated, I didn't continue dating him because I knew I was going to push that envelope. And I knew that was going to be in my kind of timeline. I knew I was going to push it. And so it wouldn't have been fair for me to try to change what he's already done. And so, then I got married and I got divorced, and I don't have any children. So every once in a while I'm like, remember that?
What if?
So it is. It's very interesting to see how you change and evolve, and you think and you grow, and you make mistakes and you do silly things. But in the end, when you stay in touch with yourself, and some of my journaling was just that, just staying in touch with myself and kind of owning up to myself too, because, there's a couple of different dates that I have in my book that will tell you that I wasn't a good first date. Because, it goes both ways.
No.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's shocking.
Yes. And that's great to realize that, that we are that way. And that's all about even much more self-realization is like that part of it. So all of it is such a learning experience.
It is. It's learning about yourself first and foremost. And I think that's what people really should, if they're not thinking that, if people don't think that about dating, I think they need to, just take a pause and just consider the thought. I'll just put it out there nicely. Just consider the thought that you do need to think of yourself first, because we do need to be responsible for what we put out there, right? I always say what you put out, you get back. And so we have to be responsible for what we put out into this date or into this world, or what you're calling out for, what you're looking for, and what you're presenting yourself as or walking into the world as. And there's certain times, people are faking it. And I'm not even exclude myself on that. There's certain times, and I remember right after my divorce, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I've never dated in my entire life. What is going on? Like, I still had a whole bunch of years of dating. So why am I like a fish out of water here? But that's a real feeling, and you got to walk through that. And then you also have to, while you're walking through that, you need to kind of take little checkpoints and say, okay, how do I feel? What's happening? What's good about this? What's bad about this? What's good about it for me? What's good about it for them? What's good about where is this? And how can I make it better tomorrow? Or the next time, whether it be tomorrow. I always say, like, I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. So, like, what can I do better to improve tomorrow? And again, as I say, forward is forward. It's baby steps, centimeter by centimeter. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Forward is forward. You'll get there.
That is just really so strong, so profound. In thinking of it that way, I'm looking back at my life and thinking, did I look at it quite like that? What
Yeah.
what
No,
did
and
I do?
yeah, I know, Kate. I mean, a lot of times I think people just don't. I think we get caught up in the finding, in the searching for the person or the one or, whatever, however you fantasize it or however you visualize it. And there's nothing wrong with the visualization of any of that. It's just you are such a big part of it, and you've got to see it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes some very solid connections, and that's what ultimately will make a person very happy, because when they find that connection and they're content and it's connected and it's aligned, then it's like, wow, like, where was this my whole life?
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is, where was this my whole life? Well, perhaps you weren't ready for it quite yet, because you weren't open to a situation, or your walls were up, or, you really didn't have a true knowledge and self-awareness of what you were bringing to the relationship. Because it's important. It's important for you to know your value in a relationship, and that's what you're bringing in the relationship. And it's also important for you to kind of even know the vision you're bringing into a relationship, because it all folds together.
So, thinking of this, all these experiences happened in the time that was pre-COVID, we'll call it,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then that almost year and a half happened, and it really was so much turmoil in our lives. So now at this end, well, people did keep dating.
They
It's
did.
which was amazing to me that
Mm-hmm.
that could go on. But of course, life did go on in all
Yeah.
sorts of shapes and forms. And so, do you see that things are different now? You were talking about honesty. There's more, which of course is important. Why would we want to show up as
Exactly.
something we're not? But do you think it's different now?
I do. I think as COVID, going through the COVID and pandemic, situation that we all went through, everybody had an opportunity, and hopefully a lot of people took that opportunity to get a little more in touch with who they are. And I think we are seeing that in dating, and I think we're seeing that people are walking into dates, showing up exactly how they are, authentically, without apologies. And when I say without apologies, I don't mean in a rude manner. I just mean content enough to not have to apologize for who they are. And they're being bold enough to ask some fierce questions that are going to serve them to move forward, to be in a relationship. I think some people continued dating. I think some part of dating during the pandemic was quite interesting. There were video dates, which a lot of people didn't do prior. Maybe they FaceTimed or something, but people literally tried to make creative dates. Actually, I was dating someone, or during that time frame, and we went on a museum tour. We went to Rome, and we went to France, and we did a couple museum tours online. We were like just virtually. It was kind of cute. So people got creative in that way, which was super nice. Other people probably still did go out because it was a matter of someone's comfort, right? I always say that there was like COVID comfort levels. So, people did literally meet also. I mean, not a lot, but, I know that people still did kind of a thing through that. But I think we just got to a point where, things became very important. Things became very scary. And so then people got into sometimes in a place of panic or scarcity or just, fear. And some of those vulnerabilities popped out during those times. And I think during that time, some people got comfortable with those vulnerabilities. And I actually hope that people got comfortable with those vulnerabilities so that they could present and go into any relationship as their authentic selves, more truer, more, unapologetic, as I'll say, and be who they are wherever they are. And so, dating, I think that's huge. And you're right. Honesty's always been like the number one thing we all want in a relationship, right? And sometimes it feels like the hardest thing to find because people are trying to appear as something. They are trying to be what they think you want to be. And that's our own human nature in some ways. And then on the other hand, it's where we do need to dial back. And I hope during COVID, and I think a lot of people from my coaching clients, I feel they have done the work through that time frame, got more in touch with themselves, don't want to waste time. They saw what happened in the last year and a half. It was a year and a half that is like a void for many of us. And in some ways it flew by, in other ways it dragged by. And there's a feeling of void with it. And we don't want to waste our time anymore. So coming in, again, like with fierce questions, strong things that you need in alignment for your relationship, we're seeing more and more of that. And I full percent, 100% encourage it, because I think it's time. It's time for us to get really real.
Right. Because the other side of it is if it's not honest, which is essentially telling lies, and we know what that does. Like, do you remember what you told if it wasn't the truth, and fabricating things? So it doesn't make any sense.
No, and you know what always comes out. I mean, that's my philosophy. It's just, and it is. It's a lot of work to lie. You're right. I have to remember. I have to figure out what it's a cover story, and then the triple back cover story, and I don't know. It's complicated, and I try to keep my life simple as much as I possibly can. Life will complicate it as it is. Like, let it be known, it will happen. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it. But I think what happens with a lot of that is, our ego gets in there, our insecurities run high. I mean, dating is, if nothing else, one of the most insecure things you ever do anytime you're doing it. You just feel insecure because someone's judging you, right? Whatever you're saying, someone is assessing, and I'll put that nicely. They're assessing. And so, so of course you could have a level of insecurity. And so some people, manifest insecurity in bravado, and they come out, woo, like it's all me and I'm all that. And that's not always so great. And can you live up to what you're saying, right? Then the other part too is people will say what they say. Like there's people who I always say what they need to say to get what they want to get. And that's not what I would call a great person. However, they will not view those things as lies, but the recipient does. Mm-hmm. And so that's an interesting thing, because people will, they feel like they're just, kind of like working their magic all day. And in all honesty, they're working a whole bunch of lies when you really break it down. And that's the hard part. And that's the hard part for people to decipher through when you are meeting someone, especially on that first date. We're all trying to put our best self forward, and we're all trying to, impress in some ways the person on the other side. And that's where some of this authenticity really needs to show up, to say, almost like distance yourself a little bit from that and just say, I'm just going to show up as me and see what happens, instead of I'm going to impress this person. Because who you are authentically, and even just that content confidence, is quite impressive, even if they don't align with you. Mm-hmm. So, but that's really that's not an easy thing to get to. What's really easy is ego. What's really easy is I'm going to tell them all these amazing things that happen in my life, or I want to hear all these amazing things that happen in their life. But then the hard part is you chip away, and you're like, you said you did that, but okay, I get it. That was not necessarily I heard what I heard, and you said what you said, and it was different. Mm-hmm. And so those little things just chip away, and then that's where the foundation of a relationship is just going to fall. And it can start in the beginning, or it could, you might not be able to uncover some of these things, for months. There's several relationships I have that, or have had that, it was months. I mean, happy to have seen it in months, not years. But still at certain times you're like, what, how did that happen? How did I just not catch any of this? But, we want to be connected. And so when we want to be connected, we make excuses for people sometimes too. And sometimes that's hard. But if we can stay in our own contentment and not be so swayed by those things based on our insecurity or scarcity mindsets, which we all have, then we're in a better place to cultivate a really healthy relationship.
So much of meeting people seems to be online, a lot of dating sites and such. Do you feel that really does work? What's your feeling about it?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think that people, there's good out there and there's not good out there. Was it my favorite? Is it my favorite thing to do? No. So, and some of that is just a matter of the premise of it is it kind of cultivates misleading things, right? Because you can write anything behind a screen. It's kind of like I'd much rather have a voice-to-voice conversation than I would to type something out because I want to hear your tonality. I want to hear your energy. I want to hear if you're excited because, a text message or email or something has no tonality. So I think I call it a necessary evil because it has replaced the going out and, for happy hour. Not that people still don't do happy hour, but going out for happy hour and, meeting people. People spend so much time behind their phone, even when they're at happy hour in today's day, or when they're at a baseball game or a sporting event of some kind. I have a coaching client who was like just the other day, she was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I went to a game and I met this guy and we're going to go out. And it sounded like an anomaly to her. And I was like, wow. I mean, I know I'm not young, but okay. This is how it used to have to be done. Like we didn't have, so it's interesting because I think online is a necessary, it's where people go and it's a place for people to go when they're looking for someone. I think that it's difficult to kind of feed through some of it. I find it to be very overwhelming sometimes because you get a lot of messages coming at you, and how do you decipher all of these things? So I think it's important when you do go online and to do so, but again, kind of head in the game on that because a lot's going to come at you. You're going to have a lot of conversations. Some are going to go 3 days, never again. They're going to ghost you. Some are going to be, 2 weeks. They're never going to ask you out. So you have to be kind of, I'm going to say in shape for it. I mean, you almost have to be fortified, to really go in it. And then you also have to know when you need to get out because there's times you need to regroup. I think to be career out there is detrimental to yourself. So I suggest breaks, regroup breaks. And your regroup break can be for 2 years and your regroup break can be for 2 weeks. You decide what that is. But I think it's people are out there. That's where single people are. That's where people who are looking for a relationship in some way, shape, or form are. And then you just have to find your alignment with what kind of relationship you're looking for to what kind of relationship someone else is looking for. Are they marriage-minded? Are you marriage-minded? Are they just, wanting to, meet and explore a new city? Are they, what are they? Who are they and what are they? And see if that, almost like the tempo aligns. And if it does, it can be wonderful. There's so many people I know that have met great people online. The man I'm dating right now, I met online. And we both laugh about it because we're both like, oh, that online. And he's like, yep. And I was like, oh, I was giving it up for, I was going to regroup. And then I found you. So I can't knock it because I found a wonderful man through it. But sometimes it can be a needle in the haystack.
Well, this is just so much great insight and information, and certainly your book, Starlight, Starbright, Where in the Heck is Mr. Right, Denise Lizette, is really great information, I think, for anyone, really at any point of life. It's interesting reading, but certainly if we're in the area of looking for a relationship, short-term or long-term, get the book. Really very helpful. And to connect with you, let's mention your website.
Absolutely. My website is DeniseLizette.com, and you can connect with me there. You can purchase the book there. I also, like I said, have some coaching clients. I offer a 20-minute free coaching session. If you'd like to go into that, we can kind of see where things are. And then my book is also available on Amazon.
That's so great. Well, it's been so great speaking with you, Denise Lizette. A great time, and really appreciate all your experiences and insights. So thank you so greatly for taking time with us.
Thank you, Kate. It's been delightful. Absolutely. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and thank you.
That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Denise Lizette and Sunday Morning Magazine with Bob Krulish. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the podcast tab, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of time together, time to listen to each other. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.